I want to start with a story about a boy with cerebral palsy and AFOs, or ankle-foot orthotics. His family came to our nature playgroup, and one afternoon he found himself on a hill. His dad was there, watching, as he always was. And for the first time in his life, this child ran. He ran down that hill, clearing both feet up off the ground during his stride. His dad watched his son run, and he cried. Later, his dad told me he never would have taken his son to a hilly place on his own. He didn't think it was possible, but in our nature playgroup, it was just a part of what we do. And it changed what his family believed was possible. Outside is for everybody. It's not a slogan. It's something I've watched become true over and over. For 5 years, running an inclusive nature-based playgroup at Patrick Egan Park in Minnesota. About half of the toddlers who attend wear some kind of lower extremity orthotic device. Many use AAC or other communication systems, and every single one of them belongs outside. That moment is what I want to talk about today. Not compliance checklists, not how to retrofit nature to fit a disability category, but how nature itself, the terrain, the variation, the realness of it, actually unlocks skills and confidence that kids and families don't get anywhere else. And how we can build inclusion into our outdoor programs in ways that feel natural, authentic, and honestly much easier than we think. By the end of this session, you'll have practical tools you can apply immediately. Whether you're an early interventionist, an ECSC provider, or a nature-based educator. Real strategies, real examples, things that work. I hope. I started this playgroup during COVID. Families of kids with disabilities were isolated, services were disrupted, and I kept thinking, these kids need to move, they need sensory input, and they need community. So we started meeting outside at Patrick Egan Park. No fancy equipment, no special setup, just a park, some families, and a belief that being outside together was worth something. Patrick Egan Park is a nature-based park. There is a zip line, but other than that, it's all nature-based elements, mostly logs and other things to climb on. Lots of great nature. 5 years later, we have a curriculum. We have speech therapists, occupational therapists such as myself, and educators who bring their specialties. We integrate conscious discipline and I love you rituals. We have a gear lending library, and we have communication boards and sensory stations, and red flags defining our perimeter. It has grown because it works, and because families keep coming back. This is a replicable model. You don't need everything we have to get started. You need a park, so a green space, some families, and the conviction that outside is for everybody. The trap. I talk to outdoor educators all the time who want to include more kids with disabilities. And there's 2 things that they usually say to me. Number 1, how do I make sure my play space is ADA compliant? Or how do I keep these kids from running away? These are real concerns, but they're also the thing that stops people from even trying. They think that inclusion means building ramps, fences, retrofitting everything to meet standards. Or they think it means constant surveillance and control, and they don't start. They tell themselves they're not ready, they don't have the training, and they don't have the equipment. Here's what I've learned. What gets named specifically tends to get done. What stays vague tends to get skipped. Not because people don't care, but because they don't have enough to act on. So today I'm going to get specific. Specific enough so that you can actually do something with this when you leave. When you walk out of this virtual room that you're in with me right now. Let's roll. The reframe. When you're outside in a natural setting, you have something that most playgrounds don't. Terrain. Logs to cruise on. Hills, uneven ground, variation, shade, brightness. And that variation, that's not a barrier for kids with disabilities. It's actually what their bodies need to learn and grow. A child with cerebral palsy cruising along a log is building balance and strength in a way that a flat surface could never provide. A child standing between 2 stems, reaching across the gap. That's a brief moment of unsupported standing that's genuinely hard to replicate indoors. Low and smooth boulders give that tactile feedback that smooth handrail just doesn't quite scratch the itch of. Nature offers services for mobility and sensory integration that are hard to find anywhere else. And nobody has to announce it. Nobody has to call it a modification or accommodation. It just happens. This is what I like to call quiet accommodation. Building our programming, our environment, our community in ways that let every child and family participate authentically. Not as an add-on, not as something special, just as a part of how we do things. The visual stop signs we use help with elopement, yes, but they give every kid a boundary. The bird freeze game, it's fun for all kids. It also teaches some body awareness. The communication board, it's there for the child who uses and anyone else who might be feeling too frustrated to use their words, but it also slows down the whole group and makes space for listening. Quiet accommodation isn't about lowering the bar. It's about designing so that the bar is already where everyone can use it. All right, the tools, how the session works. Now I'm going to walk through exactly how we do our playgroup. I'm going to show you the specific tools we use at each stage. These are the things that you can take and use today. Arrive and explore. When families arrive, we are already setting the tone. There's a sensory experience ready. Usually we have sand toys in the sandbox, and right away we're doing something that looks simple but is actually intentional. We have a second, quieter sensory space off to the side for any child or family that isn't ready to be in the middle of everything just yet, or isn't ready for that full body sand input. Nobody announces it, nobody points it out, it's just there. That's quiet accommodation in action. Maybe the sandbox is really sunny that day. So when we put the second sandbox in place, I always make sure it's in a shady area, just to offer some quiet extra options. In the sandbox, we do something I love. We build custom sand seats for any kids that might need some extra support through their core so that they're not slouching into that W sitting position right away that all of us therapists loathe entirely. Right there in the sandbox, we shape their seats for a little extra postural support. No special equipment, no announcement, just sand and a few extra hands. Digging some cool seats out. If parents are willing and the weather is nice, we also encourage parents to take off AFOs or any sort of ankle foot support that they might have and let the kids feel the sand directly. That sensory input, bare feet, uneven texture, temperature variation is something their nervous system is hungry for, and most families have never thought to do it. The sandbox gives you permission that a clinic can't. Elopement and boundaries. Let's talk about elopement because I know that's what a lot of you are worried about. And here's what we do. It's not perfect, but it certainly helps. Use a red flag perimeter system. Red flags define the boundary of our space, and every kid learns what they mean. And here's the thing. They work for most of the kids there, not just the ones that elope. Again, quiet accommodation. A fenced or boundaried space isn't just a safety measure for some families. It is what makes participation possible at all. An open, unfenced environment can be a hard barrier of entry, not because the family doesn't want to be there, but because the safety math doesn't work out without some sort of boundary. We pair this visual boundary with an auditory and visual recall signal. And then there's a little bird game.
Where we're practicing stopping and looking at our parent. And then just a suggestion, if that becomes part of your playful routines, you do it as a play thing. It might come in handy for you someday when you are at a park or somewhere, but they start to run away. If you sing this song, they might just have a well-worn pathway of like, I know what's gonna happen next, and then they look to you. And so it's just a suggestion that you might want to try. So here is the song, and it's about a little bird. We're gonna sing it just sitting first, and then we're gonna stand up.
Don't get too excited.
It goes like this. Little bird, what do you see? Little bird, freeze. Do you see me? And then the little bird's gonna look at me. I see you. I see you. Hi. So we're gonna practice singing this song, and when you say freeze, we are going to look either at me or maybe at a person who brought you. So let's stand up.
That was one of our teachers teaching the little bird game. As you just saw, it's a simple and fun game, and every child in the group is practicing freezing and responding to the cue. The child who needs it most isn't signaled out. They're all just playing. I want to take a moment here to talk about water safety. If you work with children with autism near any type of body of water, you need to know that children with autism are significantly more likely to drown in a nearby body of water than their neurotypical peers. This is not something to gloss over. We talk about it openly with our families, and we build awareness into how we run our space. We teach kids over and over from a very young age, if you see water, you stop, you turn to an adult, and you ask them if you may enter, however that looks for the child. If they are nonverbal, we're still turning to the parent and doing some sort of can I go in gesture. We're practicing that at all times. Also, if you have any sort of child with a seizure disorder, any sort of water, a water table could be deadly for a child with a seizure disorder. Even febrile seizure disorder, which is when they just have gotten a seizure when they spike a fever. Kids can spike fevers at any time. And if you are unconscious, standing above a sensory table or any sort of body of water and your face ends up in that body of water, that is no bueno. So around any sort of water, even shallow sensory tables, if you have a child with a seizure disorder, that is a one-on-one supervision situation, making sure that everyone is safe. Also, if you have a child with autism, the likelihood of a seizure disorder, I believe it's about 1 in 4 children with autism have a co-occurring seizure disorder. So things to keep in mind, water safety. All right. And teaching the skills young, which is why I do it with the parents, because then we can do it at home too. All right. On the move. When we head out on our short hike, maybe it's 100 feet, we're already thinking about mobility. A lot of our kids still fit into jogging strollers, and we talk about that openly. A jogging stroller is a legitimate practical mobility solution for young children in a nature setting. You don't need specialized adaptive equipment. Day one. Start with what families already have. A lot of our friends also who have mobility challenges also like to push the wagon. We have a wagon and they get to be my special helper, and they push while I pull on the other side. So for example, like kids who are still working on independent walking but are walking with some sort of reverse walker or other gait trainer, a lot of times if they can just two-hand hold on to that very sturdy wagon, they can help me push it to the other side, and we're all having a great time. We also talk a lot about what nature offers. It's what nature itself offers. Kids who use wheelchairs or other mobility devices aren't limited to flat surfaces. A lot of these kids have goals around supported standing, cruising, weight bearing, whether that comes from a formal therapy plan or something that their family is just working toward. The outdoor natural environment offers surfaces for that work that are genuinely hard to replicate anywhere else. Horizontal logs that are stable and non-rolling give a continuous flat surface for cruising. So when a child is like hanging onto the log and their feet are on the ground, cruising sideways, a child can move along the full length, bear weight through their feet, transfer to a chair at either end if that's what, a seat at either end if that's what they prefer. Stump clusters spaced out about 6 to 18 inches allow for supported stepping between surfaces, which is what a lot of our friends were working on, especially as they get closer to 3 if they have mobility challenges. A brief moment of unsupported standing or lateral reach in between those logs. It's like a great opportunity to build up that confidence. Gentle slopes or embedded roots allow for practice of uphill weight shifting, which is a different movement pattern than flat. So going up a hill can often be beneficial for our friends. Staff do not need clinical training for this. They need to know what the child is working towards, which the family can tell them, and can recognize which feature on the site can create that opportunity. Any transfers out of a mobility device, so like a wheelchair or a stroller, should happen with partnership with the family. Ask the family what works for them. They know what is safe and successful in other settings. Your job is to recognize the opportunity within the nature environment and create a safe opportunity. Remember the boy with cerebral palsy? He ran down a hill. His AFOs didn't stop him. The hill actually helped him, and nature gave him something a clinic could not. Circle time. Okay. Circle time is where we bring everything together. We use I love you rituals, conscious discipline practices, and these aren't disability specific. Every child benefits from predictable, warm connection rituals. They regulate the whole group. We also use a communication board, which we have little ones. We also have the one big one.
Just like adults, we use a menu to point to different food choices that we want. We can also have communication board choices for children. Oftentimes, kids know what they want to say and they have a good understanding, and their mouth hasn't caught up with them yet. Modeling on a picture board is a great way to help them communicate until their mouth words catch up. We'll be modeling on this big board during group time, and everyone will have access to this. You can join in if you feel comfortable. And on the back, there's also letters and colors. I know there's a lot of friends who like the letter side or color side better until they learn what all of these words mean.
You just saw a freestanding communication board that any nature-based program can incorporate. It's there for the child who uses alternative communication, or it's just there to normalize it. But it also gives the whole group an opportunity to slow down and create space for every child to communicate in the way that works for them. You don't need a speech therapist present to use one. You just need to know that it exists and to put it out. See what happens. A few things that make AAC work outdoors that cost almost nothing. A waterproof pouch for tablet devices. So we actually use, I believe they're pencil cases. I got them on sale at Target for $1. We use them as a dry bag. They have clear front panels. I think you can get them specifically for AAC devices. They run about $10 to $15, and they can keep your AAC device, so like usually it's an iPad, protected from the rain or mud. A crossbody strap keeps the device on the child or on the parent during active play. A device in a bag is not a communication tool. Bring it out. Use it. Recordable buttons. We use these ones a lot. They're actually also called like talking dog buttons. They're cheaper. They're the same exact thing. If you get the ones that are called like teach your dog to speak, it's terrible, but it's what it is. It's cheaper and it's the same exact thing. You just record something. It'll say like bird or leaf or whatever our theme is that day. We'll usually pre-record a word on it so that kids can easily access that main theme that we're working on. So recordable buttons around, they're $8 to $12. They're tough. They're weatherproof, and if they're not, they're very cheap to replace. We do customize them by season. We have one button that usually says more, done, bird, look, muddy. It opens up some real communication opportunities and gets kids excited. And we also have laminated vocabulary boards clipped with a carabiner to our backpacks. We also have them on lanyards so that parents and children can use them together, just between the two of them. All right, gear. We spend real time in circle talking about gear because nobody tells families of kids with disabilities how to dress their child for the outdoors. So we do it. Let's start with boots. Children who wear lower extremity orthotic devices such as SMOs, AFOs, hinged AFOs, HKFOs, those are ones that go all the way up to your hip. They face real challenges with standard outdoor gear because these devices hold the ankle. Often, if it's an AFO, it'll hold the ankle in a fixed position. These kids cannot point their toes, which means that any narrow boot opening is basically impossible to get their foot in with the brace on. Here's what actually works. Billy Footwear has a zipper that runs the entire length of the sole so that the boots can actually lie completely flat and you can open them up. Families and practitioners consistently recommend these for AFO users. There's also like the Stones, like bag type ones. Billy goes down to about like size 5, but if you're even smaller than that, Stones boots have a wide opening with flexible construction that works for a lot of orthotic profiles. The general rule is wide toe box, minimal heel taper, so not having the heel much higher than the toe, a full-length zipper with wide Velcro, and the boot needs to open wide enough to fit the foot and the orthotic in without forcing it. Extra socks don't work for most kids in orthotics. They can cut off circulation or even change the fit of the device in many of the ways that it functions. So, wool-lined boots or a boot cover over the orthotic shell are better options for warmth. The best footwear guidance for any individual child will come from the family and their orthotist. Ask about this when the kid signs up for your program or they signed up for your day, or just ask them on the first day if you have a recurring program like mine. Treat the information as your starting point, and if you have a gear lending library, it should include at least a few pairs of AFO compatible boots in common toddler sizes. Sensory considerations matter too. Getting dressed for outdoor play is genuinely hard for kids with sensory processing differences. Rain pants, heavy mittens, tight cuffs, the sound of a rustling jacket, these aren't minor inconveniences for some children. They're a real barrier to participation. When stocking a gear library, look for tagless or flat seam base layers. Smartwool and Patagonia, they show up a lot on secondhand places and tend to work well. Practicing wearing outdoor gear indoors before the season actually starts can be really helpful. Reading stories about this gear can be helpful. Sizing up for rain gear reduces tactile pressure. Neoprene gloves are good options for kids who can't tolerate bulky mittens but still need hand protection. Everything we do is anchored with a developmental framework, but we do not use age numbers. We use the Hawaii Early Learning Profile, which tracks developmental sequences, but we do not attach them to a specific month or milestone. So instead of saying your child should be doing this by 18 months, we talk about it in sequences and how they can do that in nature with no or low equipment. So an example might be, first your child learns to extend their hand and pick up a stick. Then they use it as a tool by hitting something with it or poking the ground. That is tool use. That is a developmental milestone happening in a nature setting naturally, without anyone making it clinical. We teach parents to see these moments. We teach them to notice what their child is doing and understand what it means developmentally. And then we teach them how to create those opportunities at home, outside, with no equipment or low-cost materials. Because the whole point is that families leave our group feeling like they could come back when we're not there.
And be ready for learning. So this is a quick way that you can connect with your child. One familiar I love you ritual that most people have done with their child is peekaboo. And you kind of feel that instant connection between you and your child. So these are some other ideas of things that you can do. You'll probably, after we do it, recognize that you have your own little rituals, but sometimes it's nice to have some new ones to kind of put in your pocket. So you're gonna draw little circles, and you can do it on their hands, you can do it on their tummy, wherever you think that they're comfortable. And you're gonna say, round and round the garden goes the teddy bear. 1 step, 2 step, tickle under there. And then you're gonna give them a little tickle if that's comfortable for them, right? If that's not comfortable, then maybe it's a hug, maybe it's a squish. You know your child best, so do what you think is gonna work best for them. All right, so if you're ready, give it a try. So we'll do it together. Round and round the garden goes the teddy bear. 1 step, 2 step, tickle under there. All right.
We are not building dependency in our playgroup. We are building confidence in parents to take their kid to the trail and to a park and to a hill and trust the process. That is what early intervention is supposed to do, not create services for families can't live without, but to build capacity so that families can be the experts on their own children. Inclusion doesn't have to be something special on top. It doesn't have to be extra work. It can be baked into how you run your program, in the terrain you choose, in the tools you put out, in the signals you use, in the gear you talk about, the way that you build community. Outside is for everybody, not because we've retrofit it to meet a checklist, but because we've designed our program so that every family can show up, participate authentically, and leave feeling like they belong there. You don't have to have everything figured out to start. You just have to start.
Whoa! Looky, where are you going?
That little face, don't mind if I do. Don't mind if I do.
Because like, oh, the concrete. There, no, like,
That's a walkie talkie.
just needs opportunity to try.
Right. If you always are right there, yeah, you come back.
It's like that.
Right, exactly.
Then he believes it's your job. Like, does he know to stay out of the way of the road?
You're looking nice.
Wow, you are so fast.